It is my pleasure to introduce Vanessa Zabla
Mm-hmm.
from El Salvador. And she has some questions from several young parents in El Salvador. And she's going to ask the questions and I'm going to answer them. But first, Vanessa, I want you to tell us what brought you to positive discipline.
The thing, I think what brought me to positive discipline was always an inquiry about wanting to know more. I have been working on already like for 15 years with parents of young children and with my family, but there was something missing. So when I listened about positive discipline, I thought this is going to help me so my daughters behave better.
Mhm.
But the surprise was that the first one who learned that had to change was me. Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks to Gina Graham that came to our country and made a parent certification, I got to know positive discipline. And since then, I have not been able to let it go. It's been only just something that has grown and grown inside of me. And it is a passion to get everyone that surrounds me to get to know it. For young parents and not so young parents like myself, to teach better ways of communication and connection with their children. That's how, Jane.
Your story is so similar to everyone's story who becomes passionate about positive discipline, including mine. We want something that we think that will really work to help our children, and we learn it. We are the ones that need to change first, but it feels so good, and we get such great results. Not perfection, this does not make us perfect. We like to keep reminding people, but that it helps us to enjoy parenting more. And I know that as you teach this, you hear people say, you changed my life. And that's what so many people say. And we teach it because it changes our own lives. So we
Yes,
want to share it. So
yes, it
I'm
does.
just so glad you're part of this positive discipline family.
Thank you.
So, so what is your first question?
Okay, so I made a little poll to know what young parents were thinking right now, and here are the questions, Jane. The first one: how can positive discipline help with children's self-esteem?
Well, the reason is because in positive discipline, well, I just want to compare positive discipline to behaviorism, which
Mm-hmm.
most problems are based on behaviorism, which is punishment and reward.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always the adult who's responsible to catch kids, quote, being good or catch them being, quote, bad, and then either punish them or reward them. But it's all external.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when the adult is not around?
Mm-hmm.
And with positive discipline, we don't use any punishment. And I know you're going to have a question on that, but it's all internal, where we, instead of being what's the problem and what's the punishment or the reward for us, it's what's the challenge and what is the solution that usually involves children.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always helping to develop that inner locus of control. When children are developing inner locus of control, it means that they learn to do the good thing the right thing when no one's looking, because it just feels right to them, and it feels right to them because it's based on skills that they have learned and problem solving skills, and that they feel capable, they feel encouraged. And brain science shows that children do better when they feel better. And so positive discipline is designed to help children feel better, not to spoil them, not to give them everything they want, but to help them feel better in their brains because they feel capable and confident and connection. So all of those are the things that positive discipline teaches.
Okay, great. Okay, next question. How does positive discipline help on creating strong connections between parents and their children?
And it just so happens to be the basic, connection before connection. And that is because, as Adler and Dreikers taught us, that the primary goal of all children is to belong. And so to make sure that they feel that belonging, but the significance is based on helping them feel responsible. So they have that balance of love or connection and significance or responsibility. And so one of our famous tools is connection before correction. And it's based on what I said earlier, that children do better when they feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So that connection is what helps them feel better. And sometimes the connection can be as simple as validating their feelings instead of scolding, or even to tell them, boy, we're both upset right now. Why don't we calm down till we can come back and be respectful to each other? Or saying, this is a great challenge, but it's always respectful. And that was one of the primary the principles that Adler taught, is that everything, children and everyone needs to be treated with dignity and respect.
Okay, next question. So how can we as parents correct our children using positive discipline? I am asking you this question, Jane, because one of the reasons that most mom and dads come to our workshops, is because they want their children to behave better, but to be obedient. So what can you tell us about that?
Oh, so some people not going to like this, but being obedient is one of the worst things you can teach your children, because you never know who they're going to be obedient to. Mm-hmm. What we want to teach them is to be self-confident and to be contributing members of society. Because that was another principle that Dreikus and Adler taught us, is Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which in German means social feelings, social contribution, the desire to give. And mm-hmm. obedience is not, it's usually doing the right thing when somebody else is looking and you are going to avoid punishment or get praise. But through positive discipline, we want children to do the right thing because it feels good. I keep saying that, it's that inner thing. And punishment may make children behave better because they're afraid of the punishment or they want the reward. But again, what happens when the adults are around? And even though it works, punishment works because it will stop the behavior at the moment. But what we want is for children to have the skills to problem-solving skills, mm-hmm. knowing how to handle their anger, knowing what to do through taking positive time out, not punitive time out. So again, it's always teaching kids self-control, mm-hmm. rather than, when I say that we want to teach them both belonging and significance, or love and responsibility. Mm-hmm. When kids have love, but they haven't learned responsibility, they feel entitled. Mm-hmm. It's like they feel I loved only if somebody else is doing things for me. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if they feel responsible but not loved, they may seem to have self-esteem. They may even be competent, but they're lacking that healthy feeling of self-esteem and that I am connected and that I loved. Mm-hmm. So that's why that balance of both love and responsibility. And I'm sure that you have heard, well, I was punished and I turned out fine.
Yeah.
We've all heard that. Mm-hmm. And we know our parents punished us because they loved us, both of us, most of the time. In fact, I ask people, I say, well, do you enjoy punishing your children? And of course, most of them say no, mm-hmm. because if they said, yes, I enjoyed punishing them, then I would say you did not turn out fine.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you don't enjoy it, wouldn't you rather have tools that don't include punishment, that help children learn both love and responsibility? Because that's what we want for our children. We want them to be loving and we want them to be responsible. So if you had tools that worked even better, that helped you enjoy being a parent more, that help your children develop that self-confidence and all the skills, wouldn't you rather have that? And of course, that's what positive discipline offers. We don't tell people, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, unless we tell them what to do instead. And so, mm-hmm. as you know, we have our positive discipline tool cards that people just love, because here's at least 52 other tools that you can use that will help your children develop the characteristics and life skills you want for them. And of course, one of the foundations is that mistakes are opportunities to learn. Yeah. And so you'll make mistakes, you won't be perfect, your child won't be perfect, but you can get really good at apologizing. It's like, sometimes I have said to my children, oh, I'm so sorry, I made a big mistake, and what do you know that children say when you apologize? What do you
Don't
apologize? What,
don't worry. Yes, they
yeah, it's
say.
okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
They're so forgiving. And
Yeah.
then, but even by apologizing, you've created that connection we've talked about that's so
Mhm.
important. The
Mhm.
connection before correction. And then you say, what can we do now to solve the problem?
Mhm.
And the reason you work with children to solve the problem is because then they have an ownership in it. They feel respected, they feel empowered, they feel important. And so
Mhm.
it's more easier, or, well, it's not easier, it's more, what's the word? Inspiring. They feel more inspired to do what they have helped to create.
Mhm.
But they are kids and they need parents. And so it doesn't, we can't teach anybody something once and say, okay, from now on, there are many things that we have to teach over and over again. I like to use the analogy of when you teach kids reading, you don't think, okay, I've taught you reading. Now you're after the first grade, you don't have to learn anymore. You keep teaching them because they keep getting better at it, and you keep getting better at it and better at it. And that's why, even though sometimes when it doesn't seem to work, we need to practice more and we get better at it. We get better at solving our children. In fact, what happens is pretty soon your children will start calling you. One of my favorite tools is the family meetings where everybody is involved in solving the problems. And so that whenever you have a problem, you could just say, this would be great to put on our family meeting. Do you want to put it on our family meeting agenda, or should I?
Mhm.
And one of our first rules in our family meetings is we're not looking for blame, we're looking for solutions. So one of my favorite stories is one time when I came home and found all the dishes in the sink, and I said, who put their dishes in the sink? Who left? And Mark said, are you looking for blame or are you looking for solutions? And I said, oh, you're right. Okay. So uh, nobody would still admit that they did it. So we put nobody's dishes on the agenda. And when we had the family meeting, we solved the problem of nobody's dishes
Mhm.
because we would take turns every night, one night of the week to clean nobody's dishes, but there were fewer dishes left in the sink just because we had talked about it. So it's always focusing on solutions, not blame.
The thing is, we forget it. We forget about it. I mean, I don't know why, because maybe we as parents constantly are looking for someone to blame. So that's a really big tip you just gave us, no? So focus.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so nice to teach this to kids. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about blame.
Mm-hmm.
It's about solutions. And one of the things that we always start family meetings with is that everybody gives everybody else a compliment.
Yeah.
So this also helps children start looking for the good things that they appreciate and to verbalize and tell their parents and their siblings what they appreciate about them. So we start with that, the appreciations that really creates that good feeling and looking for the positive, and then focusing on solutions that are practical, respectful, reasonable to everyone, and then ending the family meeting by doing something fun. So it creates the connection with the whole family.
I think family meetings are beautiful. It's one of the things I have implemented in my family, as well as couple meetings, and it has helped me a lot,
Yes.
a
Yes.
lot, a lot.
I'm glad you mentioned the couple meetings, because all of these principles work with couples too. And that's why we have Keeping the Joy in
Yeah.
Relationships for couples, but it's also in classrooms. And Vanessa, I have to say that during this time, we're really, especially I know you've heard on the news in the United States about the oh, what would we call it?
The
I know,
riot,
yeah,
the
uh, that we're really, one of the things that Adler taught is that everyone is deserving of dignity and respect.
yes.
And when there's any people in our community that we don't treat with respect, eventually there will be an uprising. And
Yeah.
so it is so important that we teach children from this very young age to focus on solutions and also to make the connection. And this is one of the reasons why I love class meetings. And I have always said class meetings should take place every day, not just once a week. Class meetings are every bit as important, if not more important, than reading, writing, arithmetic, because it starts with every child feeling a connection because they go around the room and give compliments. And if somebody didn't get a compliment, we learn them it's okay to ask for one. And we teach them that sometimes everybody look to your left because tomorrow that's the person you're going to compliment. So they really learn to start looking for the good things. And whenever there's a problem, they put it on the agenda. And then the whole class comes up with solutions that that person can choose. So it just creates this community and everyone feels part of it. It's like we just, part of the, it's not allowed to give put downs. It's not allowed to be disrespectful. They get to practice every day that everybody is important, that everybody can give and receive compliments, that everybody can contribute in solutions. And I honestly believe that if every school in the world was having class meetings, we would have peace in the world. And the same for family meetings and couple meetings. If we were all doing these where we focus on what we appreciate and what we can solve problems, we would have peace in the world.
Jane, I know you answered me a little bit about punishment, but I want to go a little bit deeper with this question because I live in a society where physical punishment is seen as normal and necessary among young children. Can you explain why punishment is not recommended and what we as parents can do instead of punishment? I am asking you this because also parents worry a lot when we as positive discipline facilitators suggest for them not to use it. What opinion would you give to them?
Well, what I love is that they should look at the brain research. There is so much brain research that shows that, it's not just brain research. People in universities, in the child development departments, have been proving for years, that punishment is not the best way to help children develop into what we want. But all that research is buried in academic journals, and instead of being out for the public. But one of the things is that we know that it's not the most effective in the long run, but it's all we've known. It's what our parents, it's almost instinct that we think we're supposed to hurt someone if they don't do what we want. But think about that. It's like we hurt people. And, if you hit an adult, it's called abuse. but it's, why should we be able to hit children, even in the name of love? And again, I don't think parents like doing it. I think that they think that it's the best thing to do to motivate their children to do better. And but in long term, it's too hurtful. It's very hurtful to the self-esteem, to our own self-esteem, and to feeling like we're good enough in the world. But again, we're not saying don't use it unless you have something better to use. And this is why you loved it. It's why I love it, why we want to share it with others, because what we are doing in positive discipline works better. We're teaching social emotional skills. Positive discipline is a great social emotional skills program because, for one thing, we have things like the wheel of choice where they can learn to solve problems. They have the anger wheel of choice so they can learn to deal with their anger. But we have family meetings, class meetings, all these ways to help them learn better behavior. And I will tell you one thing, it's like, I remember being in a class meeting where the kids were talking about cheating and why you shouldn't cheat. And they gave each other all the advice that every adult had ever given them, but they heard it from each other. When they're telling it to each other, oh yeah, whereas so often we tune it out from adults because instead of learning the lesson, we're learning, oh, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough. And we either go into low self-esteem or we go into rebellion. And sometimes the way they rebel is to just give up, but other times it's, I'll just make sure I don't get caught next time. I'll do what I want and I won't let you know, rather than saying, gee, I have this problem and I need your help, that they can trust their parents. I know it's prevalent, but that is based on behaviorism. And fortunately, Alfred Adler taught us something that works better. And all of the positive discipline tools are based on the philosophy of Alfred Adler, which, his first thing was that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Everyone. including children.
Jane, can you please tell us why positive discipline is so popular around the world nowadays?
I think it's because although we have many, many cultural differences, we
Mm-hmm.
have different beliefs, we have so much different, except that we love our children. We all have that in common.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, when we make our two lists of what do you want for your children, in every culture, the list is the same. We want them to be responsible, contributing, problem solving, kind, you know, all the lists are always the same. And it's also funny that when we make the list of the challenges we have, those are all the same. And so what we show is how these positive discipline tools help these parents who have created their own list of what they want, how they can accomplish to help their children develop the characteristics and life skills they want. And then we do it experientially, where they role play being the child, or they role play being the parent who tries these tools. And so they can feel for themselves from their own culture, from their own inner culture and outer, what works, what feels respectful, what motivates them to do better. And so instead of us just lecturing most of the time, we will present a concept and then we'll say, you experience it for yourself. And what, as a child, which makes you feel more like doing the right thing, and which makes you feel more like doing the challenges. And so that is why, and you know, it's positive discipline has parent educators and trainers in more than 70 countries, 70 countries exactly as of last week. And
Wow.
because it meets our common interests of everybody wanting to be treated with dignity and respect, including our children.
Jane, you know, that was a turning point for me on my certification when I got to play this dynamic called the jungle. I was the little daughter and my parents was above the chair. So when I came in front of one mom that just turned against me, she ignored me. And when she did that, I started crying. I mean, I had to be strong because I had to go again 2 more times, and there were 6 people. But when I stopped, I could not stop crying. I mean, because it hit me what I had done so many times with my girls. So that was my turning point.
Yeah. Oh yes, when we get to experience that, I know that one parent who did that, the jungle, where we feel what it's like when kids are scolded and punished and hurt. And she said, I didn't know that children had feelings. Now, she didn't really mean that, but she meant the kind of deep, deep feelings that we experience when we really play the role of the child and experience what we do. And then, of course, when they experience the positive discipline tools that we use, they always feel better and they always feel more motivated to do the things we want for them, because we take them over to the list and say, okay, are you learning any of these after you've experienced a positive discipline tool? And they say, yes.
I know.
So this is something that has been proven. I personally have been teaching it for 35 years and find that so many people, the only reason it's become popular is because other people find that it works, not because I say so, but because they take it into their own heart and their own practice, and they find out how much more they enjoy being a parent. You know, one teacher said, kids aren't the way they used to be when they sat in neat little rows and obediently did what they were told. And she says, now I just don't like being a teacher. I was ready to quit being a teacher until I learned about positive discipline, and now I love teaching again. Yes. So it is that powerful, and that's why we know it works, is because so many parents for so many years have been telling us it does.
Okay, Jane. So the last question would be, what are we parents missing to make this connection? Because we love our children, and what are we missing so that we understand that we have to educate them with love?
You know, I think that what we're missing is our own education, because we know that we need to get an education if we're going to be a brain surgeon or a bricklayer. If we're going to go bowling, we go tennis lessons, you know, we go to college to be a lawyer, to learn to be as there isn't anything in life that we don't know we need training for, whether it's a little bit of training or a lot of training, except for pain. Vanessa, can you think of the last time you punished your child? You don't have to tell anybody what you did. Just think about what you punishing your child and how you felt about it at the time when you punished your child.
Yes, I can remember. Yes.
Okay. So how did you feel about what you did?
At the moment, I was very mad.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, when I realized it, I felt very bad with myself.
Okay.
What I have done. Mm-hmm.
Right. So now, one of the things is we teach in positive discipline is about taking some time out to calm down until you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So for just a minute, think of that same situation and think about, okay, now you have calmed down, you're not mad anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Then think about what you would do instead of punish.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you feel about what you did when you had calmed down?
Very happy.
Okay. All right.
Happy and a loving mother. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so now what I want you to do to go even deeper is I want you to put your hand on your heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Access your heart. And what is the message you get from your heart when you think about that situation and what you would want to do?
That I just need to love her.
So was that any different, how you felt when you came from your heart?
Totally different. Totally
In
different.
what way? In what way?
The truth is, I was just thinking on loving her. Mm-hmm. Not on correcting her, not on speaking with her about what was wrong, just on loving her and showing her my love, how much I love her.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so which do you think would help her change her behavior more? When you punished her, even when you dealt with her when you were calm, or when you came from your heart? When
it came from my heart, definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, some people might call that spoiling the children or being permissive, and it's not. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, as we have said, where did we ever get the crazy idea that in order to get your children to do better, first you have to make them feel worse?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And see, that's what punishment is based on. If I make you feel bad, that's going to make you do better. Mm-hmm. Now, when we think about with adults, it's like if your boss really humiliates you and punishes you and makes you feel bad, is that when you're thinking, oh, thanks, this is so helpful? Mm-hmm. You know, we might even do better, but with anger, with resentment, or with feeling I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if we feel better, and by feel better means in our brains where we're not into our, you know, we teach in positive discipline, our flipped lid state. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But when we are accessing our prefrontal cortex where we have rational thinking, that is when we behave better. And that usually happens by making the connection first. And, you know, to me, we talk about being both kind and firm, so that you need to be kind for the child to feel loved, and you need to be firm, but which does not mean mean, but you need to be firm to help them learn responsibility. And the responsibility, again, is like just saying, honey, I know you don't want to do your homework, and you'll need to do your homework, so you get to choose a time. Do you want to do it now or in 10 minutes? Or is that being respectful, which creates the connection, which really is motivation for children to do the right thing and feel their self-esteem intact.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Jane, so much for your dedication, your time. I know you're going to tell me not to thank you, but I really feel I have to. And thank you just for being the ways you are, so generous, and with all that big heart that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, only if I can thank you too, because, you know, my greatest joy, honestly, in all of this is meeting people like you, where we have so much in common and we know that we can change the world through our children. And so thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Bye.
Bye.